Hello, good morning and welcome to ET Now's the newspaper show with me, Varun Hiremath. Before we go any further this morning, do remember that the newspaper press is completely safe. They're following all the proper sanitization protocols. They're wearing all the necessary PPE. So please do go ahead and get your newspaper. There's no risk. And you can evaluate your options at wantmypaper.com to figure out delivery for the same. With that being said, let's get a move on. We have quite an action-packed day for you. Let's begin with the top 10 stories in the newspaper this morning, beginning with the fact that Carlyle might be looking to place a $1 billion bet in Axis Bank. So 3 years ago, Bain Capital was the last PE player that participated. It seems that Carlyle is looking to participate for $1 billion, given all that's happening in the banking sphere right now. Now, the economy may contract 40% in Q1. That's what SBI Research says, also a key story in the paper. Day 2 of airline ops smoother, but still facing some hurdles, and Air India as well. So we're having some issues there. Moving forward, the SC intervenes, takes note of the migrants' plight. So migrant workers, the courts are getting involved on some justice for them and to make their situation better in what's currently happening. 20 million back in the jobs in May as lockdown eases. So it seems that 20 million of lost jobs have now regained their jobs in the month of May as lockdowns have lifted. So that's a really positive cue coming in for the economy. Then coming back to banking, Kotak Bank launches QIP, target 7,500 crores. So we're going to talk a little bit about that later, but quite self-explanatory. Anant Ambani joins Jio Platforms board. So another family member joining the board there. Mallya may seek asylum in the UK. So that's a pretty key development. We all know the issues he's having with the Indian government. It seems that the UK might be the new safe haven for this old Indian businessman. And at 47.6 degrees C, Delhi is the hottest it's been in a decade. So we're really having a heat wave, and IMD has instructed people to stay home within the hours of 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And finally, monsoon session, RS and LS to sit alternate days. So that's quite self-explanatory there as well. Now that we're done with the top 10 stories, let's get you a flavor of what's happening in the markets. And the markets today are going to be dominated a little bit by global cues, auto and metals. So metal stocks regain their shine, which we saw yesterday. Brokerages cut HDFC target but stay bullish. So the housing market might be looking not as secure as it was before. The S&P globally 500 crosses 3,000 for the first time since March. So the US indices are just blowing out and really retracing all their lost ground. It's as if COVID never happened to them. RIL may be working on plans to list Jio overseas. So that's quite interesting, an overseas listing for the telecom giant and arguably India's best telecom company right now. And finally, Bosch sees auto on a slow road to recovery. So we had the management on the channel as well not too long ago. Recovery for this sector, according to one of the leading players, is going to be very muted. Now let's also get you a flavor for what's happening in the corporate world. And Bharti Telecom yesterday, we heard about the block share sale for $1 billion. It seems that the amount raised has actually, or sold has actually crossed that, and 8,433 crores has been raised via the Airtel stake sale. So that's a little larger than what we thought. It'll be interesting to see how that counter holds up today. It was 6% down yesterday. Autos stare at bleak wholesale numbers in May. So that's quite self-explanatory, and one can imagine that the auto sales are going to be hit in these months. Petronas eyes Acme solar assets. So that's pretty interesting. Something happening in the renewable energy and green energy space. Cognizant, which is the big IT firm, offers US staff voluntary separation package. So, you know, at least we're not just laying people off, we're giving them something to part ways with us, at least that can support them in the interim. And finally, Uber lays off 600 in India. So not that large a figure compared to how many Uber drivers we have. But that being said, 600 key managerial roles in any company is definitely not a figure to be trifled with. So job losses definitely creeping in as well. Now this morning, there is two stories in the banking sphere that I'd like to bring to your attention. The first is Axis and the second is Kotak. Both are on the front page of the paper, so do take a look. Now, Axis Bank will be looking to raise $1 billion from Carlyle private equity That's what rumor on the street is. The last time they did a raise that was very large was in September 2019, where they did a 12,500 crore QIP, and then 3 years ago where Bain Capital led a $1.8 billion round. So given everything that's happening in the banking sphere, we're not surprised to see that banks might be looking to raise money right now while the valuations are still not extremely degraded, and they can get some capital buffer in the event that we do see a lot of NPAs like a lot of people are talking about. Now for Kotak Bank, it's a very similar story. QIP launched, 7,500 crore target, floor price set at 1,147 rupees per share. So if you give that a discount of 5%, it comes to 1,090 rupees per share for Kotak. That will raise around 7,300 to 7,400 crores. Over and above this, the promoter will then be looking to sell around $1 billion or just under worth of stake in order to comply with the RBI, which has asked him to bring his holding down slowly but surely. So two banks raising capital just to make sure that in the event of any asset quality concerns, we have some capital there, as well as one promoter looking to exit. In the case of Kotak, the valuation is much higher than any other bank in India. So given that the economy could be going into a mass downturn, it's not a bad decision for Mr. Uday Kotak to take some money off the table now. Kotak's valuation is still 4.5 times price to book trailing. HDFC's is 2.7. So it just shows you what can happen even to a great franchise. So these are two things to keep in mind as far as the fundraise goes, but pretty exciting. We'll keep those banks in focus this morning. All right, let's now switch gears to the telecom space, which we highlighted. The fundraise, or rather the share sale yesterday, was concluded. Pankaj is now with us, and he's going to take us through what it means, how much they raised exactly, and who all participated, and some other details. Good morning, Pankaj. Welcome to the show. Take it away.
So Bharti Telecom, of course, which is the promoter, has sold about 2.75% stake, and this came into the block deal yesterday as well. This is something that we have been reporting since Monday. Totally, Bharti Telecom has now raised about 8,433 odd crores, and they have sold stake in Bharti Airtel. Why are they doing this? They are going to sell down their debt. They have a debt of about 8,000 odd crores, so they completely wipe that off for that foreign debt that they have. A mix of domestic as well as foreign investors is what I can pick up from my sources is what they pick up. Society General, of course, is the name which came in, but there were various other long-only funds, the likes of BlackRock, Fidelity, some of the others, Capital One. All of these companies were among the participants. Here in India, also you have the likes of large mutual fund which had bidded for this particular asset. Remember, Bharti Airtel is almost at a life high since yesterday's block. It was trading at a life high, so it is something where the appetite was pretty strong, and Bharti Telecom, parent of Bharti, has raised about 8,400 crores to make themselves debt-free. Remember, this is a parent company which owns 38% stake, or rather used to own 38% stake, now owns 36% stake in Bharti Airtel.
All right, Pankaj, thanks so much for getting us the details on that. So it seems, based on what Pankaj is saying, that the promoter debt needs to be settled at some level, and that's where the proceeds are going to be used. But switching gears a little bit, Reliance Industries is working with banks on early preparations for an overseas listing of its digital and wireless business, Jio. This is on page 6 of the Economic Times this morning. On the right-hand corner, do take a look. Let's remember, this company has attracted more than $10 billion of foreign investment in just the last month, and it's backed by one of India's leading franchises. So if any company could potentially list on the tech-heavy NASDAQ index, it would be this one. So let's keep an eye out closely on this story. But switching gears a little bit, Petronas is in talks to acquire the solar assets of Acme, and Vinny is joining in with all the details regarding this story. Vinny, take it away.
Malaysia's state-run oil and gas company Petronas is to acquire around 100 megawatts of assets in India, India's Acme Solar company. So this company has this assets allocated in Karnataka, and the assets are valued at around 450 to 500 crores. Now, in February, Acme had already sold 600 megawatts of asset to a UK-based company, private company, which is Actis for around 3,000 crores. Now, talking about Petronas had acquired assets through Indian unit Amplis Energy Solutions, which is the company which Petronas is looking to acquire Acme's assets from. So, let's see how this actually works out for the deal. Now, India has a target of around 450 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030. And as of December 2019, they have achieved only 86 gigawatts of this target. So, it will be interesting to see how this actually pans out. And Petronas had also, was one of the contenders who was standing to buy 20% stake in Hero Future Energies, which is the renewable energy arm of Hero Group. So let's see how this deal actually works out, whether Petronas actually gets the assets. Both the companies have not commented on it. This is according to ET report, so we'll have to watch what is the actual deal now.
All right, thanks for that, Vinny. Quite an interesting story. But let's now also go over to my colleague Poonam, who tracks growth rates and what the economy is really doing quite closely. It seems that SBI Research has come up with some new, fresh insights regarding what's going to happen to our GDP. Poonam, good morning. Welcome to the show. What are you reading into this like?
Saying that the Q4 of FY20 GDP is saying to be just around 1.2%. Do remember that the activity was suspended completely in the last 7 days of March, and that is likely to lead to a loss of close to 1.4 lakh crore. In fact, the loss is nearly around 50% in the red zones, and if you take into consideration both red and orange zones, it would be a 90% loss that we would be seeing. If you look at the total state contribution, the 10 states are contributing close to around 75% of the GDP loss, of which Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, as well as Gujarat would be contributing to most amount of the loss because they have been seeing huge amount of COVID cases. So yes, we should be seeing a good amount of GDP loss in Q4 itself, but SBA also expects that FY21 GDP is likely to contract by nearly around 6.8%. This is one of the worst estimates that we are seeing. They're also stating that they only see the COVID cases peaking around end of June, and we may possibly see a flattening of the curve around mid-September. However, they're also highlighting that the risk to this would be, of course, migrant laborers as well as the recent cyclone that we have seen in West Bengal. So yes, so far we should be seeing a fairly weak Q4 GDP and a huge amount of contraction in FY21.
All right, Poonam, thanks for that. And also, it was interesting to see the data you called the other day about the impact of the cyclone on the banking sector. So it looks like it's definitely going to have an incremental impact on the GDP as well. Thanks for that. Switching gears a little bit, Chandra is now with us. It seems that Ola is undergoing some issues, and they've recently concluded a fundraise. Chandra joins in with more. Good morning. Welcome, Chandra. Take it away.
Hi, Varun. Good morning. Well, it's actually good news for Ola after, the bad news about layoffs, because they've now raised 205 crore rupees in funding for their financial services arm. And this comes after they separately raised $20 million in working capital debt. So this is an attempt by the company to really broaden its service portfolio at a time when its core ride-hailing services has come under huge strain. The business in that segment dropped by over 95% in 2 months. So Bhavesh Agarwal believes that they have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make a big change in the financial services space. In fact, some of the areas that they are getting into via partnerships include short-term credit, mobile wallet, insurance, and utility bill payments. So these are some of the things that they are going to do. And they've also rejigged the leadership roles here. So Nitin Gupta, who was CEO of Ola Financial Services, has stepped down, and Harish Abichandani has taken charge in his position. And the company has also applied for an NBFC license. So this is a new business segment from Ola to watch out for, something that's quite different from what they do.
Certainly, Chandra, quite interesting diversification for a company like that. But coming back to the tech space and what's happening with Cognizant, the story says that they're looking at a separation package for the US employees. But could you walk us through what that means a little more?
Yeah, Varun, actually, we broke the story on ET Now last evening. It's an important development because of the overall strain that you see for tech companies. And Cognizant has now changed its bench policy. So what this means is they have told U.S. employees who are not deployed on any projects, who are on the bench, that, look, instead of waiting in the company, you can take a voluntary separation package and leave, because we do not see opportunities now. Because of the COVID pandemic, the number of positions has reduced. So they've given them an option of taking 8 weeks of pay, and they will also get health insurance cover for 3 months. It will be interesting to see if Cognizant will also extend this to employees in India. More importantly, if Indian IT companies are now going to take a cue from what Cognizant is doing in the US and look at basically rejigging their bench policy. Because while some companies might believe that, it'll be good to have a significant bench in case the business picks up in the second or the third quarter, others might look at this as a cost-saving measure to ensure that, they do not have too many employees on the bench and they have a more nimble organization. So it'll be interesting to see what various companies do. But this is what Cognizant has set for now.
All right, Chandra, thanks for that. Great having you with us this morning. The next story is quite interesting. Anant Ambani, who's previously been absent from the board of Jio, Reliance's latest hit in terms of business, is now set to be inducted as director, and this should be happening fairly soon. Let's remember, he's the youngest son of the billionaire Mukesh Ambani. Moving forward, we need to get you an update of what's happening in the Times of India as well, specifically with relation to Corona. So new cases for the first time in the last couple of days have dipped to 5.5 thousand nationally, leaving our total tally just shy of 1.5 lakhs. After the WHO's move, the ICMR says that hydroxychloroquine is safe after all. Day 2, over 3,000 take off from Mumbai and 1,000 arrive. So that's the airline update for you. Centre makes Arogya Setu open source. So that's quite interesting. And then India digs in heels at LAC. So that's another story to keep an eye out for this morning. We now quickly are going to do a phoner with Prashant to look at the monsoon session is likely in Central Hall. RS to sit in on alternate days. Let's listen in. Hi Prashant, good morning. Are you with us? Can you hear me?
Well, yeah, I can hear you. If you can please repeat the question.
Okay, the question is, the monsoon session likely in Central Hall, LSRS to sit on alternate days, and the government is considering a possibility of remote attendance. And the MPs apparently can watch the proceedings and raise questions and participate online. So what's your take on this kind of proceeding?
Well, if you see, first of all, this is not the first time that we are seeing something like this happening in the world. Of course, for India, it is a very real first because of the fact that we are still fighting the coronavirus pandemic and we are into mid of it. Even as we have moved to lockdown 4.0, we still have the number of cases rising. Now, what we are given to believe from our sources is that the parliament session, the monsoon session of the parliament will be held sometime in the late August. And what we will see is the member of parliaments, if they wish to sit, they will be made to sit in the Central Hall in an odd and even day with the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha obviously functioning differently. Now what they can also do is that they can watch the proceedings and raise their questions sitting at home. So clearly there's going to be one more addition to the history of Indian Parliament, in which we have seen several new ideas being taken up over the past few years. And this will be one such idea once again that will be taken up by the Indian Parliament when we hit monsoon session somewhere in late August.
Okay, Prashant, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Unfortunately, we only have time for that.